All right, guys, welcome to another live show, the Lost Cryptids live show with myself, Blake, and Chad, the co-host. And today we have Dave Shealy down in Florida with the Skunk Ape Headquarters. Dave, you have you caught Bigfoot on film, but you grew up in the whole area. Your family did and stuff. So tell us a little bit about your early life in the swamp, and when did you start getting into this skunk ape phenomenon, Bigfoot, and maybe other cryptids?
Well, it's really good to be on the show, and I appreciate your invitation. I grew up in the Everglades. I actually grew up in an area called the Big Cypress National Preserve. It's located on the northern border of Everglades National Park. It's approximately 1 million acres. And so I live in the largest interconnected wild protected area east of the Mississippi. Almost 3 million acres surround me of protected lands. And this is my home. It's where I grew up. Um, when I was young, there was a lot of settlers scattered throughout the Everglades, and Indians that lived here. We have the Seminole and the Miccosukee Indians. I'm one of the last. I'm one of the only remaining white settlers. The others were bought out by the government years ago. And so this is where I live. I live in the middle of the Everglades. And I've heard stories. We call it the skunk ape down here. I guess you could call it a Bigfoot. That's what they do. That's what they call them up north. But it's always been referred to as a skunk ape. The Indians call it the hairy man. And I've heard about it when I was young. When I was a boy, my brother and I had an experience where we were out hunting and we actually saw one for the first time. And that kind of started my interest. Since then, I'm 57 years old now. So I guess you could say I've been studying skunk apes for 50 years, Bigfoot for 50 years. I've had three encounters. I've taken some photographs. It's been quite interesting. I run a research facility here in the Everglades. I get hundreds of visitors every day that come in to buy some souvenirs and kind of look around. I live in a hot spot, so there's a lot of people out looking every day.
Oh yeah, that's right. You live, like you said, right in the middle of this big swamp. And
I've been there, man. I bought souvenirs. I've been there, dude. It's in the middle of the. I've been there.
When were you here?
I had 2000 and recently I told you about Ben and the Panther Preserve and meeting him.
Yeah. Okay, now I know. I remember you now. Yeah. You were here with another gentleman, correct?
I was here with my brother. We were a gate company doing access control, and we had to fix a gate right by you, and then we had to run over to the Panther Preserve and fix their photo beam. And
yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, I appreciate you getting back with me now. Yeah.
Well, dude,
I recall our meeting very well.
Dave, I followed you for 15 years. Okay. Now, what I want to get into, not to take control, because Blake is
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Tell us a little bit about the Skunk Ape Headquarters, because I've been there. It's not just about Bigfoot. There's a lot to do with the swamps and the nature of the area. It's very educational.
That's right.
He's got nature in there. In fact, he's soon to have the largest snake in captivity. A python is soon to be. Yep. Or is it already, Dave? I don't know. Come on.
I fed it heavy this summer. I've got a lot of big snakes. My largest snake, Goldie, is the second largest snake in the world in captivity. She's 23 feet long and weighs 300 pounds, probably a little longer now. I had her measured by Ripley's and Guinness Book of World Records on the Discovery Channel. I believe it was in December. And it's a friendly competition. I actually know the man who owns the world's largest snake. That's out in Kansas City, Missouri. That snake's name is Medusa. Mine's name is Goldie. And we do offer a lot at the headquarters. We have 5 guides who live on the property. It's a 40-acre property. I have 150 campsites, 7 home sites, and about 15 rental cabins and Indian huts. So it's a large property. We do canoe, kayak rentals. We also do traditional pole boat tours. That's where you hire one of our guides, and we have traditional skiffs where they use a pole to like pole the boat, like you might see in Africa. And that's all licensed because we provide the service on government property in the national park. So we are licensed and insured, and the guides are all trained by the National Park Service. That's part of the deal of how that works. So I run a very family friendly, and I run a very professional business, and we provide eco tours. Now my Skunk Ape, that's all run out of my Skunk Ape Research Headquarters,
Yeah,
which is it's interesting. We have alligators and baby alligators, and have nice ladies that work up front to greet people when they come in, and we're undergoing lots of renovations to make the place professional and nice. We're putting in a small tour for people that's got about a half an hour that just want a quick view of the area.
We call those expansions. We're expanding a little bit, right?
Yeah, we're expanding, but we're doing it in a nice way. I'm highly regulated with my snakes. The Burmese pythons are considered to be exotics now, and there's a big move to remove them from the Everglades, and that's fine with me. They're eating a lot of wildlife, but in order to have them in captivity, very few people hold the licenses that I do, and I am located in the Everglades. I have a lot of giant snakes. I have to have all the snakes are chipped. I have our hurricane plans in place. The cages are double, triple. My big snake cage has 6 locks on the door, and that's just the way it is. It's highly regulated what I do in that regard.
I can vouch, people. I've been there. It's legitimate. I highly recommend it. It's not going to be a waste of a trip. David Shealy's the real deal, whether you want to believe in the skunk ape. But if you want to go out into the thicks, you want to go with somebody that knows what they're doing and where they're at. And this guy's a real deal. Now let's get into Bigfoot, man. Sorry, we talked too much snakes, but I loved it.
That's fine.
You do a lot of stuff on Facebook. You do a lot of live and going out and showing different stuff and plants and all sorts of things. So it's really cool. And so people need to check you out on Facebook and Skunk Ape Headquarters Facebook page and all that. Any .coms and all that too. So
well, I got skunkape.info is my main website. I spend it's not that amazing to me that I've had the encounters I've had. I find tracks annually. Generally, when the water's falling and the swamps begin to dry up, the ground's tacky. Tracks. You know how they find dinosaur tracks today. I mean, that's unbelievable that you find a dinosaur track, but they're preserved because the dinosaur walked in the dry lake bottom. But on a lot smaller and realistic scale, once the swamps get tacky and the tracks go down, we may have 3 or 4 months without rain, and so the swamp bottoms are ideal for keeping track and records of the wildlife that lives there. They're underwater most of the time, so you don't have the grass and vegetation that where you can't see tracks. The tracks are clear. They're in damp mud. So I can walk. Some of the swamps are from one end to the other are 20 miles long, and I'll start on the bottom of a swamp and walk all the way up the middle of it. And there's a lot of swamps. And this summer, I spent almost every night and most days in the forest. I covered more than 1,000 miles here from December till about July on foot, which is crazy if you know the area. But I do it. I'm in the woods all the time, and I can walk through a swamp, and I can pretty much tell you what's going on in that swamp. I can tell you how many deer are living in the immediate area. how many separate families of raccoons live in that swamp or otters.
I watched you eat snails right out of the swamp. You didn't even cook them. Come on.
Well, you
Yeah,
live in the swamp. You live in there. You live there. So
He
you
does,
live right in there. So
hey, when oysters are $15 a dozen, a man's got to do what a man's got to do.
right.
Snails are everywhere.
So yeah, you real quick, you were saying well, you lived there all your life. Did your dad have any stories about encountering these creatures or any other swamp creatures or anything like that? Any stories in your family?
Sure. Growing up, I mean, it was different. It was different. I mean, I had Indians living behind my house, living in the forest. They would poke a little hole in the turtle shell and put a rope in it, and then they would drive a stake in an open area. So that turtle could only go so far, and he would make a circle. He couldn't leave that area, and that's how they kept their food. They didn't have refrigeration. It was just a different time. We lived in a cabin that was made out of tree bark, basically, and that's how I grew up with my family. So when we would have guests, it was a topic of conversation. A Bigfoot, skunk ape come up. Somebody say, "Hey, I saw some tracks in the back. I got beehives back there. I hope you don't get into my bees." Stuff like that. And so it's the skunk ape is, and my dad, and he had some friends that would occasionally investigate sightings in the area. So I kind of grew up in that being just a normal thing. It wasn't really that unusual. It was people, hey, we got a skunk ape out back. And they kind of travel. It's a big area. Like I said, it's 3 million acres. So yeah, they might be in the area for a month or two, and then they'll move to another area, maybe for food sources or elevation, whatever the case may be. Maybe they're disturbed and they just leave the area. Very much a wild animal. I can tell you right now, in the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism. I'm like I said, I'm in a national park, so the Park Service has 1, 2, 3 headquarters within 20 miles of me, visitor headquarters, and they were reluctant when I first started going public back in about 1990. And I put up a sign out on the highway. I always had their headquarters back in the park, but I put up a sign and said, "What the heck?" But today, the National Park Service in the Everglades has partnered with an orangutan facility in Indonesia, and they're actively, not now with the virus out, they're not doing it, but this past year they had orangutan researchers in the forest where I do my research. They believe what I'm seeing is an orangutan or something that's near like it. They're not discrediting me. So the National Park Service is actively investigating sightings. They have sightings reported in their offices as well.
Right. Yeah, they must know about it and stuff, of course.
I have a question.
Up in the boughs of the trees and these swamps when I'm walking them, if I get into an area where I'm finding tracks, I'll search that area pretty thoroughly. And I have to be really diligent about it because a lot of my search is focused in the treetops. We have the large cypress trees here. Some of them are up to 100 feet tall. So I have to just systematically go to every tree that's capable of holding a large animal and just visually view the tree from the ground to the top. In several occasions, I found huge nests built in the forks and the boughs of trees about 40 feet off the ground. This is why the park is interested, and this is why they're very similar.
Are these nests for their young, Dave? What do you think? The big ones aren't up there. Do you think these nests are for their young to stay in during the day? What's your opinion on this?
We get a lot of water. I think they get up in them to get out of the bugs. They just have learned over the years. They get out of the mosquitoes, away from the water mainly. We have so much water here. About 90% of the Everglades is covered with water in the summertime. It's extremely difficult to get around. You either have to have an airboat or a canoe or something like that. But even then, it's not easy.
I have another question, if it's okay. You mind, Blake? So, Dave, now Your big cast, which I've seen, is the four-toed print.
Yeah, that's one of the characteristics of a skunk ape. Yes.
Part two. Have you ever found a five-toed print?
No, I haven't. Not one that I've cast. No, but on the eastern seaboard, especially down here in the south, it seems that's the four-toed's the norm. It's been a big sticking point for me over the years. When I first took the pictures, I took 27 photographs. I think it was in 1991, something like that. And
90.
Unsolved Mysteries did a big story on it. And I got I got a really hard time from a lot of the Bigfoot investigators in the Pacific Northwest, because they just were totally turned off by the tracks that I was finding. And all I could do was say, I'm sorry, but this is what I'm finding. And so
I've seen his cast, people. I've seen his cast, and they're like really nice, and they're four-toed.
Yeah, I just got another one about 4 or 5 months ago. I collected another track, which is in the same line, same track, but considerably smaller, maybe 2/3 the size of the tracks that I've been finding. So that's just one of the ways I kind of try to get a population count. Right now, I think we may have as many as 7 of these things that live in the Everglades area. I'm finding different tracks in different areas, and there's no way an animal can cover the ground. And that's kind of how I base my count, is on track size and the areas they're found in.
Yeah, it's amazing that they're they're not five-toed. Like I know in other places in Florida they find normal like five-toed tracks. What do you think's going on with these tracks that you're finding?
Well, the majority of the reports that I take in, and I take in a lot, and the Park Service does too, are of these animals in trees, which is contrary to what the Bigfoot sightings, you don't hear about them being in the trees that often. If you were to see a skunk ape in the open, you would say it looks like a Bigfoot, but it's this tree climbing thing that's kind of got everybody stomped right now, and it has for 20 years.
Would you say
believe that they have adapted, whether, I don't know, evolved, but they climb trees in the Everglades. People see them in the trees all the time. I had some people come in a couple of months ago and saw one in a tree. Actually, just recently I had a report, but it might have been a bear, because I haven't really looked into it, but it was in an area near a bear crossing.
Right. Would you say that they're possibly different? Like, different species? People are always speculating, or
they're definitely smaller.
Do you think they just maybe evolved differently because they evolved into the Everglades, the swamp, and living like that lifestyle and different terrain?
Well, we have very warm temperatures here. Very warm temperatures, and we have very small.
That's an understatement.
Excuse me.
That's an understatement. Florida has very warm.
That's one of the reasons I spent so much time this summer out in the forest, is because it was so hot, and we had 100-degree days back to back, and the only time I could really get out and cover any ground was at night. Normally I do my research during the day, but this summer I kind of went nocturnal. I just had to because of the condition. It
was still 86 at night too, wasn't it? Just no sun.
and muggy. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I'm on Facebook. I do some live feeds. But it's hard. I don't get service much, so I generally just record and then I put it on Facebook later. But I'm out in it. Believe me, I'm out in it. It's a mess sometimes, but I love it, or I wouldn't be there.
You got to watch us sometime, Dave. Seriously.
Oh my God.
We go out into the nastiest of Michigan stuff you can go in. and we go in it.
Yeah.
We
Let
go
me
into
tell
stuff.
you, I would if I had to spend the night out there in Michigan right now, as cold as it is, and me being the southerner like I am, I would die. I mean, I would freeze to death. I got no clue what it's like to go through that. But I will tell you down here that, I mean, it's like a minefield at night, and I'm not exaggerating at all. We have over 1 million alligators. In the night, I might see 300 or 400 alligators. I'm not exaggerating.
There's probably, well, don't forget the 755 billion mosquitoes.
Well, you know, I use natural plants and stuff like that, and I got that. I mean, I'm used to that. But I run into crocodiles. I ran into several crocodiles this summer, and then I have sharks. A lot of the area I go into is shark-infested waters. I mean, the Everglades is a fresh and saltwater area. So I spent a lot of time. I spent an exceptional amount of time in the 10,000 Islands this summer, and had several times had big tiger sharks and bull sharks come in on me. We've got cougars. We've got an abundance. We've got an overabundance of cougars here now. We've got the giant pythons. We've got bears. We've got 4 different types of poisonous snakes. So, I mean, I'm out there and I'm covering this ground and I'm running into this stuff all the time. And I told a friend the other day, I said, you know what? I said, my days are numbered. I said, one of these nights I'm going to leave out of here and I'm not going to come back. But I said, I'm going to tell you now, before it happens, I wouldn't have had it any other way. If I got to go, I got to go. But so your heart really has to be in it. And it's not like I have this occasional run-in with a dangerous animal. I run into them regularly all the time.
Now, Dave,
it's scary.
I can't let you. We heard everything that you said, but in the beginning of what you started with, I can't let you leave our listeners without knowing. Now, you talked about you know natural things to deter mosquitoes and insects. Can you please, because we all know you're an outdoorsman, fill people in the South at what they can use to protect themselves from mosquitoes and ticks and things like that, if you would, please.
For mosquitoes and deer flies, I use wax myrtle or myrtle bush. And I break the leaves off. I'll strip the leaves off in my hand and then just kind of roll them up in a ball and get the oils on my hand. And then just rub the oils on my face and my neck. And it keeps them away. When we have bad mosquitoes, the wildlife knows this as well. A lot of your mammals will go for myrtle thickets and myrtle patches. And so it's just a natural insecticide. That's what I use. I use myrtle, wax myrtle.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, here in Michigan, we don't have all the crocodiles and alligators, certainly, but it's treacherous. We have some poisonous snakes, and what's some of the dangerous, we got muck, quicksand type of situations and stuff like that.
We got mosquitoes and biting flies. Just face it.
Have you caught yourself any bad sinkholes, quicksand, muck situations? Stuck in the mud, getting swallowed up?
Well, I am in, it sounds crazy, but I'm in quicksand all the time. You learn how that's how I get out. Other people say, I want to go with you. The last time I tried to take somebody with me on when I was actually trying to do something, they didn't make it far at all. You got to know how to walk. You got to be able to place your feet on the roots of a plant and use those roots to hold you up. And if you step 6 inches away from it, you sink up to your waist. It was funny to me because the guy kept falling down and I'm standing there looking at him and he'd stand up and he'd take a step and he'd go down again. There was a lot of oysters sticking out of the rocks. You can get seriously hurt. Yeah, but you know, so yeah, I do. But and knowing the terrain, that's not really a big issue with me. I just kind of I use mainly I walk on grass when I get in soft soil, and I walk very softly and with a lot of knowledge. And it takes that. It really does.
Yeah, exactly. We actually go through the same stuff. Like I said, minus all the alligators and all that, because that's a whole nother level. And you know, these creatures down there, they're
22-foot anacondas out there. Think about it.
all sorts of new things. And
There really is. There really is. And the older I get,
There's
the
anacondas.
more I realize that the danger that I put myself in. And in fact, I own a campground, but I have to tell you this because it's the truth, that it is not safe to sleep in a tent in the Everglades anymore. I mean, if you don't zip it up, a snake could come in and literally strangle you in the middle of the night. The bears, the cougars are so protected, highly protected, they've lost their fear of man. So you really need to protect yourself. And I'm not a chicken. I'm not a scaredy cat. I'm just being honest. And the sharks this year were unbelievable. I spend maybe 8 hours in water above my knee walking and turn around, and I got a giant tiger shark behind me. You got to be on your game. And I cover a lot of ground. I amaze myself all the time and others, but it's just because I've done it for so long. I'm not,
right.
You know,
you've lived there the entire life. You exactly know. You're right. You know exactly how to walk on places and do things. Know everything. And you've caught some video and some photographs of possible skunk apes. Is that right? You have the famous what's it called?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
When you're up in your tree, when you're in your tree
course,
stand, of course, running through the swamp.
It's very famous. It's the famous.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot more famous. It will be the equivalent of the Patterson Gimlin film within the next 10 years. It will be that well known. I right now I'm on the Travel Channel with that video. I don't know if anybody's seen it. And then I think here this week or next week, I will be on Paranormal Caught on Video. You know, everything's being done remotely right now. I had a lot of bigger stuff lined up to do, but with the coronavirus, to send large film crews into the Everglades right now out of California, New York, it's just not happening. I had to cancel a few things. I actually had a program lined up with the creator of Jurassic Park and Disney that we were going to do. That was it's been put off. Yeah, so I was really looking.
What was
that
going to be about? What was that going to be about?
It's just going to be about the skunk ape, the Everglades, and they were in the creation part of it, but they were getting ready to bring the crew in and start putting the show together. It just hasn't happened. It will happen soon.
Right. Well, that's awesome and stuff.
So, Dave, if you were going to eat a snake out of the Everglades, what's the best tasting one?
Well, I got to tell you,
come on, tell us.
I'm around there. They have the professional snake hunters now, which is kind of funny to me because I've been having pythons for 30 years, but now they have all these snake hunters in the Everglades, and every night they're out in their big trucks. They get bounties on the pythons, so they skin them out. They bring me the meat. I get hundreds of pounds of python meat. I feed them to my alligators. I've got some big alligators. I just got 17 more.
So you're saying the best tasting meat? You have to ask the alligator.
Best tasting meat is the alligator. No, but what I'm saying is that I've eaten. I'm trying to get found. I've eaten rattlesnake, which I think is got a good flavor, but I don't eat snake. I haven't eaten snake in about 5 or 6 years. I probably won't again.
Dave.
Yeah.
You eat snails out of the fucking swamp. I'm sorry. You ate snails out of the darn swamp.
I'll tell you what happened is I was out. I'm trying to get my lined up here. I was out at my hunting camp, and I was mowing the grass, and I had mowed the yard, and I sat down and had a sandwich, and I'm looking at the lawnmower the whole time. And the grass, I mowed it low. And so I got done eating, and I went out and I got on the mower to go load it on the trailer. And so I don't know how it got in it, but like a 5-foot diamondback crawled underneath my mower while I was eating the sandwich. I never seen it. Well, when I cranked up the mower, the blades cut on, and it was like blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden it shoots this big snake out, and it's all cut up on the ground next to my mower. And it had just eaten a rabbit. And the rabbit was
we
decayed.
know what Dave had for lunch that day. He had a rabbit and a snake.
No, I didn't. It stunk so bad that the blowflies came from everywhere. Blowflies, I mean, there wasn't a blowfly around, but I mean, a minute later, it was. I just got sick to my stomach. I said, I'll never eat another snake again. And so I just haven't eaten another snake. It just kind of made me nauseous. I would. Yeah, and if I was hungry and I needed food, I would eat one in a minute. But I eat frog legs. I eat stuff like that. But I'm just got my stomach got turned on the snake.
When I come down to Florida to visit you, Dave, I expect snails and frog legs.
I'm getting ready to do some frogging. I'm get my gear together. There'll be some good frogging here in the next 2 months.
Yeah. So
okay, the video. Let's talk about the video. Yeah. I want to talk about that video.
What year did you shoot this in? What year did you shoot that in?
I thought it was 2000.
That was 20 years ago. That was in 2000.
Okay.
And that particular video is taken about a mile from my house. I've been back to that area twice in the last couple of months. There has never been any real research done other than the research that I've done on the actual video. Now, when you see it running across the field there in front of me, you can't really tell, but there's 1.5 feet of water on the ground. And it's a 7-minute video, about 7 minutes, and it covers almost 3/4 of a mile in the video. So it's a long time if you see the whole video. It is running as fast as a deer. I'm walking out there that day, and I hear splashing in the water. And I start to focus on a pine bed, which is a little drier ground. So I start to focus on that, and that's when I see this Bigfoot skunk ape animal on the edge of the palmettos. And I notice ahead of it is a deer running. It had spooked a deer, and that's what the crashing of the deer is what I initially heard. So when it's crossing the field in front of me, it is running as fast or faster than the deer that preceded it. There's nobody out there other than myself. I know that the area well. It wasn't a group of guys playing a joke on me. You know, this was a real animal. It was running as fast as a deer. And in the video, as it just before it ends, say maybe 40 seconds before it ends, if you watch that video, I mean, it is moving. It's an incredible speed. It can't be duplicated. I was out there last week. The water was above my knees, and it's all you can do just to walk that area. So to think that somebody might have been in a suit out there, that's just off the table completely. That's not David, what I saw. Exactly.
I've never doubted it 1 second ever since the day I watched it. There's a reason I follow you. So
it's an incredible piece of footage, and I was really blessed to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I remember seeing it, and it was back in the day when it first came about. I mean, it was big and stuff. And a lot of people got a lot of heat for it, and we'll call it fake and all this. But you're right. It's in an area where a human can't run and make that time.
And didn't the size comparison equal out to like over 7 feet tall and stuff on it? in the end, where people tried to compare the size to what it was in the field. It was like way over 7 feet tall.
Yeah, but nobody has ever actually went out to the area with a tape measure or a stick and had somebody stand where I was. None of that's been done at all. There's been no real investigation to debunk or prove the video. And that's what I would like more to do. But for me to go out there by myself and support or debunk my own video doesn't really, it would be meaningless. It wouldn't have, it needs to be somebody independent out there. It's something that I can't do myself.
Sounds like a road trip, Blake. Sounds like a road trip, man. We'll get we'll get our forensic guys with us, and it sounds like a road trip, man.
Well, it's something that needs to be done. I can tell you that, because the video's not going anywhere. I'm going to stand on that video when I'm dead and gone. That video.
You took it out of a tree stand, so you can have identity. You took that out of a tree stand, if I remember correct. You were up in a tree stand, right?
It was a very low stand, very low. Yeah. It wasn't.
So you'll be able to duplicate. You'll be able to duplicate exactly where you were.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. We could do anything. Yeah, it could be done. Definitely.
I'm 6'8". Why don't I walk out there in the swamp?
You're 6'8".
Yeah. So he's a good swatched measuring tool. We use them all the time, and we can send him out there.
We find stuff. We think it's small, and then I go and we do the recreation. And it's like, wow, I'm little.
Yeah, time you and James seen something. It wasn't.
Well, the recreation needs to be done. I'm pushing for that, just because I just want. I would just like to see that. I know. I worked with. I've done a lot of television shows over the years, and so I've seen a lot of different type suits that they use and stuff like that, and they're very cumbersome.
Swamp, David.
What's that?
I will run through a swamp. I will recreate it. You can ask anybody in our group. Yes, Blake. I will go. I will trudge through whatever you want to recreate it. Let's do it.
Well, if you want to come down here and do it, when y'all get the time, you want to come down here. March and April, a good time to be down here and give it a shot.
Oh, what, you feeding me isn't that where the alligator mating season is? Hang on a second.
It's actually a little drier, a little more comfortable conditions that time of year. It's kind of pleasant out.
Right. How far away was it? Where, give or take?
In the beginning, I was about 150 yards away. Towards the end, I was about 400 yards away.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was quite a ways away, and you'll notice the film jiggles a little, and that's because I had it on full zoom. But it can actually.
Your camera was from 2000, which is not as good as they are today. So of course, there's stabilization.
It can still be blown up some and maybe stabilized, but it is and the reason that I mentioned that it's going to be there with the Patterson is because it's a more modern film. It's not the tape film, and so and that's one of the reasons that I think that it's a video that's here to stay. I don't think it'll ever go away. I think it's pretty much locked down.
And since it's more modern,
let's recreate it.
And also, the evidence in that footage is more information than the patty. So hopefully one day with technology and stuff, you're right, we could really bring it out and find out the truth.
We can recreate it.
We already kind of know, because people person ain't going to be out there hoaxing you, waiting for you to look at them.
No.
I mean, come on.
Not there.
No, y'all mentioned that you never heard me use foul language or anything like that, but I can tell you that people that live around me, they would never go out and try to do something like that to me. I would be outraged. You know, it would be a bad scene go down if I went out there and had to pull a mask off of somebody's face. Nobody would do that to me. Believe me, anybody that knows me knows that would not be a good idea.
Right, you take it very seriously, and plus, you know,
I do.
Respectable and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I can take a joke. I've had radio stations send people to my house to knock on the door in the morning dressed up like Bigfoot and stuff like that. I can take a joke, but when I'm out doing my research, I'm all business, and that's the way it has to be.
Exactly, it does.
Every time I tried to go meet Dave Shealy, oh, he's out in the field. Lady at the store, he's out in the field. I'm like, damn. When is he gonna be back? Well, probably around 10. I'm like, I can't wait around till 10. No, this is no lie, man.
Yeah, I've been trying to be around as much as I can lately. I always am, but you know, I get up in the gift shop and it's just one car after the other, people coming in, and I mean they're buying armloads of merchandise and business. I surpassed the $1 million mark on T-shirt sales about 7 years ago. So I mean, and so I really appreciate the people who come. It helps keep the bills paid. It allows me the freedom to get out and be in the woods, and I like to show that appreciation back by being available.
Imagine the expense for your zoo. The expense alone for you to feed your zoo.
Yeah.
I mean,
just
so
my bills alone. About $70,000 a year is what I pay out in expenses to keep my facility open. About $70,000 a year with electric, employees, insurance, animal keepers, stuff like that. So you know, but it's a one of a kind place. I'm in the middle of private property inside of a national park. I don't want to get into the specifics of my income.
Let's just say he lives on a swamp, dude. He lives on a swamp.
You do, yeah. So let's dive into something else. Any other cryptids down there? Any lizard man? There's reports of released monkeys and orangutans, chimps.
Oh yeah. I get pictures of those all the time. People see monkeys regularly. And that's another thing. People say, well, with all the trail cams and all the technology today, people should be getting pictures of these things on trail cams. And I'm here to tell you that they do. There have been a lot of incredible trail cam pictures taken over the past 10 years. People bring trail cam pictures to my facility all the time. And they're fascinating, and now with the actual trail cams with the motion in them, I'm getting more of that. The thing of it is they come to me and they say, "Hey Dave, look at this, look at these tracks I found, look at these pictures I got," and they think I'm like some kind of media god, and I can just call the local newspaper and it's on the front of it, but that's not how it works. So I just, I look at it. I ask if I can get a copy. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But there are pictures. A lot of private individuals have photographs of these things in the Everglades.
Wow.
Now, I'm not the only one.
Have you ever heard of a gorilla in the Everglades? Wild gorillas? Because
or orangutan.
I've heard orangutans and stuff. But what about a gorilla?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you have. If you read the article that they have in Smithsonian Magazine on me, I actually directed them to a secret facility in the Everglades where they were experimenting on gorillas and monkeys. And since the article came out, shortly thereafter, the facility closed its doors and went away. But up until that point, there were a lot of monkeys and great apes being spotted on the northern edge of the preserve. I came across the facility. I was I was called by a farmer who lived on the northern edge of the Everglades in a farming area, who had found some unusual tracks. And I went there and I met him, and we got the bloodhounds out. He had a pack of bloodhounds. And so I said, well, I'll go. And we crossed some huge private ranches and properties, and we crossed some farm fields, and we wound up on the edge of the Big Cypress Preserve. And as we followed the dogs to a large compound with about a 15-foot chain link fence around it, and multiple signs at the gate saying that do not enter. This is a closed facility. If you're with a government agency, you're going to need to notify us with a search warrant. No one is to enter this property. And that's where I brought Smithsonian to, and that's when the doors were blowed open on that, and they shut down and disappeared. But it was actually going on there. There was some type of ape primate research going on there that involved genetics. That's all in the Smithsonian article.
Wow, that's crazy and amazing.
We're getting
even more amazing is the tracks we were following led us directly to the fence. I live about 40 miles from that area, and the animals I've studied and am studying have been around way prior to that facility, but those particular tracks did lead to the facility.
And those were skunk ape tracks you're following, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay.
And actually, a Florida Fish and Wildlife officer had photographed the tracks as well, and in the beginning of our hunt was with us on the ground. So I mean, it was the state recognized this too. They had officers there.
Do you ever hear about what their plans are, or what their goals are trying to do with skunk ape? And
who's that? FWC or the?
Yeah, they're just a national wildlife guy.
It's all Department of Interior. Department of Interior.
Control.
Well, what do you guys?
The Department of Interior is actively researching the area where I'm at right now, and they have been for the last 3 years. I think they're just wanting to get it documented, but they're going out at it as they call it a troop of orangutans that have set up residence and are somehow surviving in the Everglades. And that's how they're going at it. There's funding directed to it. There's researchers being flown in from Indonesia on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's no data given. There's no real data given about what's going on, but it's really happening. I've been there.
It's happening. Yeah, I've met the researchers. I was introduced to the researchers by a member of the Department of the Interior.
And I know Ben, and Ben told me the truth without saying a word, and our whole. That whole compound up there. I think that the one you put the gate on, I think it's about a 50,000 square acre area. It may be smaller, but that's a through area there. They've got all them big overpasses and stuff there with the fencing on them. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting area. As a matter of fact, why we're talking about that area, and I don't know if I mentioned it to you or not, but there was a big sting operation that went on. It's been about 20 years ago. It was a undercover illegal wildlife sting where protected species like Goliath grouper, which is a grouper, was being sold in restaurants, alligator meat being sold in restaurants. And so they had an undercover agent in the area for several years who was collecting information before they made a massive arrest. And I knew the guy. I didn't know he was undercover, but I would run into him occasionally. And he stopped me one day. Not in his car. He stopped me. He was actually, it sounds crazy, he was a cook at a restaurant. That's how he got in town. Well,
but
guess
he said,
what?
"Hey, Dave."
You're indiscreet. You're a cook. Right?
Well, he was a cop, and now they say he's dead, but he ain't dead. He's still alive. But according to the FWC, he's dead, but he's not dead. He was a chunky guy, a friendly guy. You know, he just got in with some locals, and he got into some illegal activities, and that's what he was there for. And I'm not a part of illegal activities, so I mean, I don't really care. I know everybody. I know who is. It's none of my business. I mind my own business. But he told me, he said, Dave, I was up there by the Panther Refuge. He says, I was going to Immokalee. This is the undercover guy, the FWC. He says, I got on one of the overpasses just north of the alley.
This is 15 miles from Dave's.
Yeah. He says, I saw one of those skunk apes. He says, as I went over the overpass, I looked down beneath it. And he said there was this big gorilla-looking thing laying in the grass. Looked like it was rubbing its belly, rubbing its back, and rolling around in the grass. And I said, "Whoa, that's interesting." I said, "I'll have to go check that out." But other than that, that's about the only conversation I had with him. I know I went to dinner. There was a bar there where he worked too, and he was sitting at the table with a bunch of guys. And then the next morning, all hell broke loose, and there was about 30 arrests made. So, they were making the bus that night, getting ready for the bus. But he told me he saw one too.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right in that fenced area where y'all were working on the gate.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think? Why are they so open? In other places, the people who are investigating this, government agencies, they're pretty secretive. But obviously, where you're at, they're pretty open about these orangutans. Are they saying they're loose orangutans, or
they say that? I was on Fox News a while back I went to Mayaca, and they were looking into it the same way, that it's probably escaped from a circus train or something like that. The Tampa area is known for the Ringling Brothers Circus.
Been so several generations out
and
there.
The government's not open about it, Blake. Understand that here. It's not the government. It's just hearsay. It's word of mouth. It's things that get out in local little newspapers and stuff that bring it out.
Yeah, I can tell you now that if you go into the government information centers in the Everglades, let's say you go by, there's several. There's the Eastern Gateway to Everglades National Park. There's a Western Gateway. There's a Big Cypress, has 2 information centers. If you go in there and say, I want to know about skunk apes, what can you tell me about skunk apes? They will not tell you that it's a hoax or it's not real. That will not be their answer. They have been put to school on this. They will tell you that people claim to have seen them. If so, it's an unknown species that they haven't listed yet, and chances are they're going to direct you to my place.
Hey,
it's amazing that they even say that and do that.
Excuse me?
I said that's amazing that they kind of acknowledge it and send it to you. Like most of the time,
they are beginning to acknowledge it. They are getting so many sightings in that they are beginning to acknowledge that it's something that people are seeing these. I've had 2 sightings in the preserve just in the last couple of months in the same area where I'm wanting to check it out. But yeah, and that's just at my facility. They have 4 facilities.
Dave, do you mind taking a couple questions if the chat has them?
Yeah, it's about time. Let's take some questions.
Chat, if you got questions, put them in caps. Linda's got it.
David, do you think skunk ape could be due to genetic manipulation? Obviously, skunk apes have been around before a facility like that, but do you think they're genetically manipulated or inbreeding or something? Or
Right now, I'm not going to take anything off the table as far as what a skunk ape is. But I can tell you there was genetic testing going on at a primate facility in the northern Everglades up until about 5 years ago when it was shut down. But I've been seeing skunk apes, and skunk apes have been seen in the Everglades way prior to that.
Right. All right.
After Hurricane Andrew, many animals from
Oh yeah, from hurricane, all the hurricanes that you guys get hit. Animals escape from the zoos and they get into.
Oh yeah. That's the question. Oh yeah, that's just a matter of fact. That's how we got the breeding population of Burmese pythons. Is a snake facility down near Key Largo was leveled in Hurricane Andrew, and several hundred pythons got out at one time. And so you can only imagine that there's the monkey jungle in Homestead, Florida that had severe damage. They have a lot of monkeys there, and also private ownership.
Aren't they like
agricultural area.
hepatitis? Isn't that a scare about those monkeys? Aren't they like full of hepatitis and all that too? I've heard it. I don't know. I mean, you're in Florida now. I'm just saying. I've heard that population is infected.
There's several populations of monkeys in Florida. They're isolated. Research laboratories will buy an island and then and completely inhabit it with monkeys. And monkeys are known for diseases. You know, when AIDS first came out, they said it came from monkeys. So people just have a fear of disease in monkeys, and monkeys have a habit of throwing feces and stuff like that. So kind of nasty. So I think that they're probably no more prone to having diseases than any other animal. You know, there's a big rumor about the armadillos carrying leprosy. I don't know if you heard that, but
I've heard it.
Yeah, that was here in Florida where they were doing leprosy research on armadillos, and they had a storm and the armadillos got away. That was 70, 80 years ago. But to this day, everybody swears that the armadillos got leprosy, and that's just not true.
Gotcha. I got a question for you. With all the stuff that's invading the Everglades, the invasive species, which obviously we can't stop. We can't stop all the pythons and all that. What do you think is going to happen to the swamp of the Everglades, say, you know, another 100, 200 years? I mean, what kind of ecosystem and things are going to be there? I mean, is it going to be totally unrecognizable? I mean,
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic dinosaurs evolving in there.
The Everglades is, for the most part, is almost unrecognizable today. The fish in the water of all the people in Miami, the fish coming in from South America and Africa, they just thrive in the Everglades. So when you look at excuse me?
The invasive, right? All the invasive species.
Yeah, the canals and the waterways are just filled with invasive species. Mm-hmm. The native species are still there, but not in the abundance that they were. They're constantly tampering with the water flow down here in the name of reclaiming the Everglades, removing some of the dikes and stuff. And
I thought it was in the name of the sugarcane fields is what's destroying everything. Come on. Tell the truth.
No, well, you're right. They're trying to filter the water from the cane fields and get the nutrients out of it. So as the water flows through the grasslands and into the estuary bays, it's more pristine, and so that's what supplies our Gulf of Mexico with shrimp, and shrimp feed the fish. It's an ecosystem, and it'll always be here. And even with all the exotics, I've seen it so many times that they flourish, and you think that they're just going to overrun everything, and then they find a balance. Somehow they find a balance, and the Indians say that nature has a way of healing itself. You just need to leave it alone, and that's kind of what happens here in the Everglades. Even with the pythons, we had the introduction of the Texas cougar, which was a multi well, I would say $1 billion project that the state undertook, bringing cougars from Texas. So they let them go right at my house. They've eat all the wildlife. They killed all the deer. They killed all the armadillos. They killed all of our wild pigs. They pretty much decimated our wildlife down to nothing. And then they started eating themselves, and so that is even coming back down to a balance.
And attacking people. What about attacking people? Did they start attacking people also?
I we're walking on some soft ground here. The thing is as they say, nobody's ever been killed by a cougar. They call them Florida panthers since they brought them here.
Right.
But we're talking. I'm telling you right now, there was a young man who was killed by a cougar and drug into the woods and eaten, and it was covered up as an abduction in order to save their program. There's been several attacks on hunters in the woods. They're not publicized. The hunters are said they must have mistaken it, and it's all covered up. And I don't want to get into all of that kind of stuff because it makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's the truth.
We all know cougars are opportunistic, man. We all know that. Anybody that knows anything about a cat, it's going to be opportunistic. It's going to. If it's hungry, it's going to hide and wait. And you're going to sit under it, and it's going to jump on you and kill you if it needs to.
The investigation into the boy that came up missing was totally flawed. I actually went into the police records and had it changed from an abduction to possible panther attack. And so officially it's listed now as a possible panther attack, but the family was told it was an abduction. And I know all the players. I even know the panther that killed him was killed and incinerated immediately. But that's the way things go. Some people think they're above the law, especially when they work for the government.
And we all want to know why Bigfoot isn't classified yet. There you go, people, right there. Yeah. They can't even.
Well, I got to tell you that I'm getting a little weary here. I've had a long day. How much longer y'all want to go?
4 or 5 more hours. 4 or 5 more hours. 4 or 5 more hours.
Well, then we're going to have to get back on here in a couple of days and do a couple more hours. I have really enjoyed this. I just want you, if you got some questions that you'd like to ask me, just ask away, and we'll move along.
Yeah, there was another question about the current population of crocodiles in Florida and any big ones. Saltwater crocs, obviously.
They say that there's 1 million alligators in Florida, but I can tell you, I got 1 million alligators in the Everglades. There's more than 1 million alligators. As far as the crocodiles go, crocodiles are considered to be an endangered species. It has been for the last 40 years. The largest concentration of crocodiles are at the Turkey Point nuclear power plant. And the reason it's there is because the entire area is fenced in, so they're very well protected. And the water is warm because the nuclear generators keep the water warm. It's a vast area. But the crocodiles exist in Flamingo. Flamingo is the eastern gateway to Everglades National Park. That's where your first natural hatchery is. But they are expanding their range quite rapidly. I saw more crocodiles this year in the western Everglades than ever before. And I'm just off the top of my head, I would say there's probably, I'm going to say more than 10,000 right now.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a big area. It's the 10,000 islands, so that's a crocodile.
Isn't that invasive, though?
Right,
David,
right, yeah.
Won't that become invasive? Won't that 10,000 become 100,000 in no time? I mean,
I don't know.
Will the alligators keep eating their babies?
Well, crocodiles and alligators, they're both cannibalistic. Alligators are very cannibalistic. Male alligators eat the babies of other male alligators. They eat other male alligators. Very cannibalistic. The problem with the crocodiles is, we have mangrove forest here, and the mangroves are highly protected. But I can tell you that and they're protected because developments like Miami and Naples and Fort Myers, they've cleared the majority. They've cut them all the way to
Tampa, all the way to Tampa and above.
So I'm like living in a stronghold of mangroves, and they take over everything. I got to tell you, they're thick. They cover creeks that I used to go up an airboat. I can hardly get down them in a canoe. The seeds float inland and they just keep choking areas off. And that's the crocodiles.
Grow so fast. They grow so fast.
And the crocodiles need a sandy, sunny area in order for their eggs to incubate properly. And so, there's areas where they can, but I don't think we're going to have a big boom of crocodiles. I think it'll just be a slow increase, and then they'll come to a balance. But there's a lot of crocodiles now, a lot.
What about the biggest one you've seen?
The biggest one I seen in the wild this year was probably about 10 foot long. And I was going to fill a bucket with water, and I went and dipped the bucket in the water, and I looked, and it was right by my hand. I had a headlight on, and I was like, oh my God, because I know about alligators. I own alligators. I've been around. I eat alligators. But the crocodile's a different animal. It's more aggressive. They're fast. They've got an attitude. And so it was a little uneasy for me. But you deal with, like I said, I honest to God, guys, I looked death in the face this summer probably 10 times. I turn around, there's a shark behind me, there's a crocodile next to me. It happens so much. I know one day I'm going to be taken. I know that.
I watched your videos, man. I've seen you. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
look what happened to Steve Irwin. I mean, I would never jump in the water with a shark, but I mean, even when you know things, things
that was
go
a simple
back.
mistake. He thought he was all good. That stingray was his friend, and he pet it, and then it happened to shoot his stinger up and happened to hit him in the chest, and that's what killed him. He got killed.
I am literally wading through stingrays, and one night walking, I may see 10,000 stingrays.
They don't try to sting you. That's not their objective.
No, I just kind of wade through them and they go around me. But I see sometimes they come up behind me, the big ones, and they're kind of scary. You turn around and you got a giant stingray. I mean, at your heels. It's a little wild, but things can go bad. I could slip and fall on one. I mean, it's just life is like that. In the twinkling of an eye, you can be gone. And that's the way it is for me when I'm out, because I'm so remote. I'll never get any help. And there's all of these things going on. And you experience it. And I look at my life, and I was almost killed by an alligator about 25 years ago. I turned around, and I had about a 13-foot alligator that was getting ready to lunge and get me. I mean, it snuck up on me like I've never been snuck up on before, and I just happened to turn around at the right time. When I got my giant snake, it was 18 feet long. The way I found it, it was in some rocks. I looked up, and it was fixing to bite me in the face. It was lodged. It would have killed me. If I had not looked up when I would be dead today. So I've looked death in the face, not only several times in my life, but several times this summer. And I'm saying to myself, I'm getting older, and I really need to slow down. And I'm sure there's people that say, "Oh, I'll walk through the woods all the time. I ain't worried about nothing." Let me tell you what, you got to keep your guard up. You got to be on guard for that unguarded moment, because it will happen.
Now the thing is, you can't die until we do the recreation, so you have to wait. You have to wait for that. We'll do the recreation, then Bigfoot can eat you. That's fine. Okay.
Well, I'm going to keep it close to the house for the next 3 or 4 months. I got a lot of people coming to see me. I'll be safe, but you need to get down there as soon as you can, because I'm 57 years old. And I don't know how much longer.
51, Dave. I'm 51.
Here's another question. Do you have any plans to obtain DNA or other evidence? Do you have any DNA evidence from your?
I had some people contact me the other day. I turned over hair samples to Unsolved Mysteries. Came back unknown species. I don't know if you happen to see that. I do have a large tooth that I found. It's an unusual tooth I found in an area. I've been back several times to look for more, and I haven't, but it looks almost like a human tooth, but maybe 4 times as large. And I'm reluctant to submit it as for DNA evidence, because I'm not sure what it is, and I don't want somebody to say, "Oh,
Dave, you could take a drill and just drill a little bit into it. You can sanitize that drill bit with alcohol and stuff. drill a little bit, and you can take some of that powder. You send that powder in to be analyzed and still
Right,
have
take
the truth.
chunks off of it or something. But
Just
then again,
little
you
bits.
are destroying.
Bring your drill with you, and you can do it. We'll drill a hole right through it, and I'll put a string through it and wear it for a necklace.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you gonna let me have the necklace? Oh,
Well, I was going to wear the necklace. I was going to give you the dust that came out of the hole.
It's been fun. We got to do this again.
Yeah,
Dave,
we
for,
definitely do.
Yeah. We'll do it again. Anytime, guys. Anytime. It was a real pleasure.
and welcome to StreamYard, man.
I'm
Yeah,
happy
first
to be
time.
here.
Good. All right, well, there you have it, guys. Thanks for joining in for another live show, and what a wonderful guest, Dave Shealy. Definitely gonna have you on again soon. And well, I think that's about it. We'll have another live show here soon next week, and we have another video of the part 2 of the Whitmore Lake Conference coming out. So stay tuned for that. All right. Well, everyone, have a good night, and thank you so much for watching.